So imagine that you're out there in the modern dating world getting to know people, and potentially you find somebody that piques your interest and you start building a connection. And while it may feel like there's an immediate spark, it may also feel like this person knows exactly how to say all the right things. In fact, maybe they make you feel really special and win you over, even to the point where you feel like, is this too good to be true? Well, in some cases, this is because you found a really compatible match, and it's great news. But in other cases, these actually could be signs of something known as the dark triad. The dark triad actually has a chilling truth to it, and it talks about personality traits that can serve as the biggest red flags in relationships. And if we're not aware of these things, what starts off on the right foot, seeming like everything is perfect, can actually turn a connection into a nightmare. So join me as we dive into the dark triad, particularly three crucial components. Number one, narcissism. Number two, Machiavellianism. And number three, psychopathy, which basically are referring to three core personality traits that by the end of this video, I'm hoping that you have a very clear picture about early red flags and signs, as well as symptoms, and some clear action steps for what to do if you need to exit a relationship like this, or you have the suspicion that somebody you're seeing or dating may have some of these characteristics intact. So, number one, when we look at narcissism, some general symptoms of narcissists are that there's this excessive need for admiration. They may have this sense of entitlement, this arrogance, this sort of attitude like they're better than everybody else, or grandiosity. They may also be really fixated on things like power and status. Even things like envy and jealousy can take a lot of their mental real estate up. And they may be advantageous, manipulative, even exploitative. And they may even have premeditated plans for how to exploit somebody. Most of all, as you really get to know the narcissist, they're going to struggle to have empathy. And all of these things can make for really difficult relationships. Now, remember how I said that it may seem as though in the early stages, like everything's great, almost too good to be true? Well, unfortunately, this is the report of people I hear all the time leaving narcissistic relationships because narcissists do something early on called love bombing. And love bombing means that somebody in a relationship dynamic will basically put you on a huge pedestal, get to know you deeply, find the right sort of psychological ways to win you over, and to give to you the things that they can find are your sort of buttons to push, right? Like those tipping points of when you're going to really feel special or important or wanted. In fact, the narcissist may even go so deeply into understanding your background and history and learning exactly what you feel like you've always wanted to hear and say exactly those things until they win you over. And once the narcissist wins you over, that is going to be the place from which they tend to start devaluing. And they may be harsh, critical, cruel, mean, abusive in different ways, verbally, mentally, emotionally, even physically. And being with a narcissist can create a lot of hardship. Okay. So I'm going to share with you some of the early things to look for and when the needle starts to move, but I want to go through the other traits first. We also have something called Machiavellianism. The way you can sort of separate out narcissism from somebody with Machiavellian personality traits, because somebody can be Machiavellian without being narcissistic, although people who actually have full blown narcissistic personality disorder, not narcissistic traits, generally have a little bit of Machiavellianism in there too. But people who are Machiavellian tend to be very manipulative. Think of your Machiavellian type of personality as being like the con artist. They tend to swoon people. They tend to plan out these like sort of premeditated cons or plans to win you over so that they can take away whatever they can from you for personal gain. They tend to be duplicitous. They tend to have this sort of superficial charm or glibness. But again, they'll leverage that charm to make you interested, reel you in. And as soon as they feel like they've done that, they'll tend to try to extract from you whatever you can. I often think of things like the Tinder swindler when I think of Machiavellianism. And of course, that person probably had ASPD as well, which is antisocial personality disorder, the more clinical term for psychopath or sociopath. And maybe was also a narcissist, right? There can be comorbidities, or maybe it was one or the other. But you can see that overarching theme, that loudest personality trait is how Machiavellian somebody was, right? That person who reeled in different women, who would sort of win them over, tell them everything that they wanted to hear, and then start exploiting them for money. And it was this long game, right? It was this premeditated, like, take you on a private flight, win you over on the first date, make you feel super special and important. And then when you bought into this image of who I am and you trust me that I have all this money and all these resources, that's when I'm going to start asking you for things because I know that I've sold you on the image of myself. You're not questioning if I'm going to pay you back. And that's where I start to extract resources from you. That's very Machiavellian, right? It's like you're thinking about those things, very manipulative, sneaky, again, like long-term planning in advance. Even things like, there's some other like documentaries out on the internet that what was one? It was like the bad vegan. That was probably psychopathy, if anything, but very interesting. So that brings me to point number three, which is psychopathy, which is having basically a total lack of remorse or guilt. There can still be this superficial charm, but there's this callousness, this recklessness, sometimes violence, aggression, a lot of impulsivity. And the main difference when you look at like the narcissist trait, the Machiavellian trait, the psychopathy traits, not looking at them from a personality disorder lens, but just these sort of characteristics that can exist along a continuum in terms of the expression of the trait itself. What you'll see with psychopathy is that I think of like if we had to imagine, you're sitting in the waiting room, let's say, of a doctor's office, and maybe there's like 4 or 5 different people in there waiting along with yourself. And all of a sudden, one of the 4 or 5 people has a panic attack, but you don't know it's a panic attack. You just see them like gasping for air and like can't breathe and holding their heart. And as they're having this experience, the narcissist is probably going to jump in to try to save the day, which is not a bad thing, right? Because they're going to try to help and be there and be supportive. But their internal relationship to it will be a lot about, oh, I get to be the superhero. I get to look good. They're going to have this kind of like more personal relationship to it about how great they are and building status or grandiosity or attention or admiration rather than empathy, rather than it being like, oh no, what can I do for this poor person and being concerned for that person. So they have a unique relationship to this. The Machiavellian person is probably going to start thinking, well, how can I leverage this and sort of exploit this person in this particular case? And what can I sort of get out of this situation in a sense? Whether or not there's something to get out of the situation, who knows? But that's probably where their mind will go. Like, oh, maybe while everybody's focused on this person over here, I can grab that person's purse, or I can use this as an experience to bond me with somebody. So that rich person, that rich looking person in the corner, maybe I'll be able to win them over and then get something away from this, right? So that's sort of like how they'll think about these situations. Whereas a psychopath will probably sit in the waiting room and be like, this is annoying. This person's making too much noise. There's this callousness, there's this deep disconnect from the human experience that you'll see here. If you're interested in helping make a huge impact on other people's lives while also building financial freedom, I'm offering an early bird 50% discount on our integrated attachment theory relationship certification program that will help you become a certified integrated attachment theory relationship coach and build your own thriving practice by the end of 12 weeks. This 12-week on-demand program will help you kickstart your new career by teaching you revolutionary tools and strategies that help clients transform their lives and relationships. Build your own coaching practice and set yourself up for a waitlist of clients and financial success. Even if you have no coaching experience, this program will give you very in-depth tools, resources, and confidence to get started in a matter of weeks. And you can learn more information by clicking the link down below. Now, when you're first dating somebody in the modern dating world, this is not going to be the way that these people present themselves because they are often in something in order to achieve a certain end or means of something. And so you'll generally see that they all have the capacity, the narcissist, the Machiavellian person, and the psychopath. They all have this very strong capacity to win you over because they spend time educating themselves on this, forming plans around this, thinking about these things, premeditating these things. I mean, these things take up their mental, emotional real estate. So I've often said to people, there's a few key things that we can do when we're first getting to know somebody or dating them, and we're not sure if something is a little too good to be true. And there are four major factors or sort of quadrants that I want you to pay attention to here. Number one, does this person react very strongly when you don't agree with them? Okay. You're going to see that the Machiavellian person becomes very like shut off if they feel like you don't agree with them, can become cynical, can try to manipulate your opinion or move you in a different direction. The psychopath may even respond with aggression. And again, the narcissist will take it very deeply personally in a lot of cases or become like argumentative, very combative. And I'm not sitting here saying that like any person that you're out at dinner with that has a difference of opinion with you is now one of these things, but it's that you're going to see this like unusual emotional charge around it. It's not like a little disagreement or a difference of opinion that could be even interesting or educational or make for a fun little healthy debate. But there's like a very negative experience around that. And you'll see that as time goes on, that pattern repeats itself. Number two, you'll actually generally see with all three of these individuals that if you express something that upset you, that hurt you, that is affecting you, that they did, they don't have the capacity to really empathize. In fact, they may like deflect, diminish your feelings, ignore, or even get angry that you're questioning them, even take it very personally and get frustrated that you're even bringing into question any of their behaviors whatsoever. And so you'll see that really strong lack of empathy. Number three, you'll see that they all tend to have variations of behaviors that are very impulsive. Now, this may not be something that's very clear right out of the gate, but it is something to really look into. Okay, if there's like these big impulsive decisions that are happening all the time, unfortunately, I'm not here to like demonize these individuals. These all three of these personality traits usually come from a history of trauma and with that an extremely dysregulated nervous system leading to somebody making many more impulsive decisions. And with that impulsivity, you'll generally see undertones of aggression. And again, I don't mean like little tiny pieces of aggression, but actually pretty aggressive things, whether it's like, trying to pick a fight with somebody, really start an argument, just becoming like a little bit overly combative. And it's really when you're seeing multiple of these things together that they start to point us in any of these given directions. Now, I will say before I tell you this fourth thing that's really important to look out for, and then we'll talk a little bit about what to do if you are somebody who's gone through a relationship with somebody like this already, and if you are somebody who has struggled in any kind of capacity, um, we have a full course you can check out completely for free for a limited time. And I'll put the link down below, but it's Overcoming Narcissistic Abuse. And it covers in that abuse from other individuals that may have similar patterns to narcissists, including psychopaths, sociopaths, etc. And if you are struggling and you need some healing in there, please at any time email info@personaldevelopmentschool.com. If you take that free trial and you get in there, it's more than enough time to honestly finish a course. But if you are, for whatever reason, you can't finish the course within that period of time that you get for free, email info@personaldevelopmentschool.com. Just let them know about your situation and they'll like help you out and extend your free period or work with you in some capacity. So please feel free to do that because these are real things. Like these are not small things to go through, and people going through coming out the other end of a relationship with somebody like this are very deserving of a lot of support. So this brings me to the last major point here, which is that you'll see with all three of these individuals, there's a deep sense of entitlement. Entitlement to your resources, entitlement to your attention, entitlement to how they are planning to manipulate you. And again, these come from like very deeply survival oriented behaviors where it's almost like this finders keepers kind of attitude. But there is this deep sense of like, I don't care how I affect you. I am just going to take what I can from you, and it doesn't affect me to do so. And so, again, all of these things are really important early red flags to catch. And if we're breaking them down by source, you're going to see that, like narcissists, they need this constant validation. They exaggerate their achievements. You may see that they lie frequently, belittle others. Machiavellian individuals, you're also going to catch lying pretty quick out of the gates if you're paying attention. And there's generally a lot of this like ambiguity and lack of transparency into like their life, their relationships. You may even find in particular for Machiavellian and individuals with ASPD or psychopathic traits that they don't have many people close to them. They tend to see relationships not as an experience or opportunity to bond and get close, but instead an experience or opportunity to like take what they can, then leave a relationship and move on. And so there'll be this backstory of like somebody showing up, being there in a relationship, maybe even in moving intensely quickly in relationships and then discarding a person and doing that frequently. So they don't tend to have long standing or long lasting relationships in their life. And with psychopaths, some other red flags too are like disregard completely for rules and norms, no remorse after harming other people. And listen, I'll be the first person to sit here and say that like not every rule serves. Like if you're, for example, you have a family emergency and you're worried that one of your family members is in the hospital and you speed to the hospital and you go over the speed limit by a good bit, like not every rule is applicable to every single thing. But I'm not saying stuff like that. I'm not saying like, oh, when we have those moments where we come from our heart and something really concerns us and we have to like do something out of the ordinary, like speed to the hospital, because I'm not saying stuff like that, right? I'm saying like people don't care about any rules. They don't care about any relationship to how they affect people. Like these are the sort of psychopathic traits with a lot of extreme recklessness. And again, no remorse if they do hurt somebody. So please look out for these things. Please keep an eye out for them. Part of the reason I make this video, and I'll tell you what you can do about this, by the way, in a moment, just at a high level as well. But part of the reason I make these videos is sometimes I'll make a video about like an attachment style and I'll see people in the comments declare things that they've experienced. And I'm like reading the comments going, and I'll try to like respond to people on these things. But, sometimes I'll see a comment and it's like, things that are not about an attachment style, things that are so much greater than somebody having an attachment issue. Like your attachment style is basically the subconscious set of rules you've learned about love. And there can be some really great patterns and there can be some dysfunctional ones, and they're pretty easy to change. I'm talking like we're getting into totally different territory, things that are a lot more intense. And I want to make sure that people are educated on that so you don't fall prey to these kinds of experiences. Generally at a very high level, and again, that course you can check out for free really does go into this in so much work with action steps, workbook, tools, community support, all the things. But some key points to heal from these dark triad relationships is number one, learning to actually validate your own emotions and experiences. Unfortunately, people coming out of these relationships have usually been gaslit or had their reality warped so much for so long that you end up gaslighting yourself. And so we have to return to like honoring our emotions, validating our emotional experience, getting back in touch with our intuition through doing that, and learning to trust ourselves again, because that can be a big loss that comes out of these dynamics. Number two, nervous system regulation is absolutely key, because generally spending a lot of time around somebody like this will keep you in this like constant fight or flight state, AKA sympathetic nervous system. And learning to relearn your healthy boundaries again, learning to express your true yeses and nos is huge. Number four, working through core wounds. Often coming out of relationships like this will have these big core wounds, things like believing that you're a bad person because somebody made you feel like that for so long, when unfortunately it was probably that person who had really dysfunctional patterns. And things like feeling not good enough if you're constantly put down or criticized, or unworthy or unsafe to really connect with people, not being able to trust people. These are core wounds that we can heal from and that are very worthwhile to work on. And last but not least, there are more, but another really important thing to check in with is like, are you available to meet your own needs? Are you checking in with your needs and looking out for them? And if you're doing that as well, that's going to be a really important component of self-soothing. So there's so much more I could say about this topic, but I don't want to make like this 2-hour video. Hopefully this is helpful for you. And if you went through something like this, first of all, I'm so sorry that this was your experience, but also I promise you there's a way to come out the other side and heal from this and move beyond this, so that this is just some old story from your past. It doesn't have to be something that defines you as a person or your character or your future in relationships. So that is it for today. If you're enjoying this channel, please subscribe, please like, please share if this is something that you think could help anybody, benefit anybody else. And again, you can check out that link down below fully for free. And thank you for watching. Thank you for being here, and I look forward to seeing you in future videos.